Alright, good morning everybody. Going to do that walkthrough of making backgrounds for Homeworld Remastered that I promised I'd do like a month ago and said I'd do it in a week, and here we are a month later. Anyways, um, so we're going to go through first just the Blender setup, your source files, and then after that we'll go through rendering the cube maps, exporting, and hopefully take a look at it in-game. I'm going to do this as we go, just working from a previous template I have from another one, so apologies if it's a little rough. Alright, so your source file, go away. Our map background today is going to be called tutorial, because of course. Our source file that we are going to use is going to be this tutorial underscore diff. It has to be named similar to the way that ship files are named because Hodor uses the same logic. We're going to use the one from the Gearbox examples because it's much nicer than any one that I could create. And we'll set the flare, we'll set the key and fill lights, we'll export, and we'll see how it looks in game. So this is it. This is the source files for your backgrounds. It's just an equirectangular map. You want to avoid having any detail or information in the top and bottom, really, because it's all going to get pinched at the poles, regardless of what kind of mapping you use. I'll show you the UV mapping in a minute here. You want to have most of your information here in this center band. It helps to have a definable front and back to the map, but again, that's all down to personal taste and requirements for your particular mod or purpose. Alright, so let's go to our file, and this is the setup that I use for exporting backgrounds. Let's see here. We're going to take a look at our Alright, so just like in a regular ship mesh, we've got our root info with these two that mean something special to the game, but hell if I know what they are. Root LOD, which holds your information. Hold light, which holds your lighting information. You have your joint post planet. That is for planets, obviously, but I believe it can also be used for other objects. And it can be used, these can be enabled and disabled independently within the Lua file that accompanies the background. And you'll see what I mean later. We have our flare key, which tells us where our pretty volumetric God rays come from. And we have the actual UV mapped sphere itself for our background. So, hot pink because it's missing its image right now. So let's take a look at how this is mapped. See, it's kind of weird. I believe this one I yanked from the actual game files. So this is just how they map theirs. You can do a couple different things with this top and bottom row right here to minimize your distortion. It just depends on you what you want to do with that. Alright, so first let's go through our material setup. This is our key, or this is our most important part right here because this is the actual background. Alright, so let's name this mat or material tutorial. And it uses the background shader, and yes, that means that you can define different shaders and use those instead. Then we're going to rename this to tutorial diff. And my understanding is that this is one of the few places where we really don't want any compression, so we're having Hodor convert them as full, straightforward TGA files, 8888. That's my understanding anyways. Alright, so we're going to open up our tutorial diff. There we go. Going to go into textured view mode. Oh, and actually, tutorial diff. There we go. And so now we can see what it'll look like in game, more or less. Which also helps because now we can find our flare key. Let's see here. Yeah, all right, everything's there. Okay, so we can take our flare key, move it over here. Because you usually want it from the brightest spot in the map. And we'll take our directional light number 1. And actually we'll just move it to the same spot. And we'll take our directional light number 2. And actually, if memory serves, I don't have to have this one, but we will put it where we want to put it. Actually, yeah. We will leave that one alone for now. Alright, and we will take our... Oh yeah, because directional light number 2 is actually your fill light. I forgot. So we will have our fill light come from this weird cloud-looking thingy over here. And you notice I'm just kind of dragging it around so that the line passes through the point on the sphere. It's not the most precise, but as long as it works in-game and you can see the lights are coming from recognizable sources. And then we have our ambient light, and that's just at the center here. Okay, so those are our 3. Now normally you would set all your information here, but Blender does not support that many characters, so we're going to have to edit that later on, after we export it. That's the only really tricky part. Sort of. You get used to it. Okay, so we have our sphere with the assigned material and the assigned image, all following Hodor naming conventions. We have the actual mesh data, which in Blender needs to be named the same as the actual object data, because those are 2 different things in Blender. Don't worry about it. Just make sure it looks like this. We have our flare key. We have our joint that it's all parented to. We have our post-planet joint, which we can leave in there, but we're not going to use it. We have our directional light 2, which is our fill. We have our key light, and we have our ambient light. And if I get those terms wrong, sue me. Hold light, which is where all the lights are parented to. Then root LOD, which everything is parented to. More or less. Alright, so we are going to use Decesseric's wicked cool Blender exporter for Homeworld. Make sure you check selected objects, tutorial light.dae. You'll see why that matters in a minute here, or a minute or more. Okay, so we have that. We have our DAE. That's the blend backup file. Ignore that. Here's our source file. Here's our Blender file, and set those aside for a minute because we now need to render the cube maps. And the cube maps, let's see here, do I still have? Okay, so the cube maps are what define your reflections on your shiny metallic ships. So in order to render those, we have a set of cameras in the center, each with a field of view of 90 degrees, and each one pointing in a different direction. Now, I'm not entirely sure that I have all the orientations correct here, but I do cover all of the different fields of view. So, you notice they all form kind of a cube. So we will start with, oh, I thought I had these named. Let's name these real quick. Bottom, left, front, right, back, top. There we go. Thought I already had them named. Okay, so we Control 0 to activate that camera, F12 to render that out, F3 to save. We're just going to name it front for right now. And we repeat with each one. This is probably the most tedious part. 12, back, bottom, left, right, top. All right. Actually, do I have this correct? Maybe. Okay, so we now have our 6 cube map sources. They do have to have a specific name, and it is the format for it is level name or background name underscore positive or negative, and then Z, X, or Y. And you'll see we have to have quite a few of them. So we will make these in Photoshop. Do. So this will be tutorial. We're going to call this negative Z since this is the bottom. I'm not entirely sure if that is correct. And this is, let's see here, HQ. Oh, no, it's underscore HQ negative Z. All right. Back is negative Y, I think. Top is positive Z. And so obviously if we're not following the right format for this, our reflection map in-game might be all screwed up, so you're probably going to want to have a test cube or something in-game with reflection cranked to 100, or, you know, full white. I guess that'd be 255, 255, 255. So that you can see just what the hell your reflection map looks like in-game and see if it's all screwed up or not. Positive X. Positive Y. Posy. So, yes. So that leaves us with, these are our source files, which actually we'll get these out of the way here. Okay, so we now have our set of 6 cube maps. These are the HQ versions. We need to make a low quality set 2. And I think this is just for machines that are not as powerful. We're just going to blur it So filter, Gaussian blur, 10 pixels should be enough. Oh, I did leave out one other thing. I am rendering these at 512 by 512. So they are square, they are power of 2. Make sure that you follow those rules. We're going to save this as just without the HQ. Control F to rerun your last filter. Some of them you can't really tell the difference. Others you can. It's like life with and without glasses. Control F to run your last filter. Remove the HQ and save as. Save as. Alright. Close all. Alright, so now we've got whopping 12 cube maps. It's definitely the most tedious part, especially if you screw them up and have to, you know, go do it again. And so keep these cameras on a separate layer, because you don't want to accidentally, you don't want to export those with. I think he'll just ignore them, but you know, you don't want to have junk in your DAE. Okay, so now let's do lighting. And I have a little cheat sheet set up on an extra layer in here that lets me take a look at what the lighting sort of is going to look like. So let's see, our ambient we want to be, there we go, make it this nice cerulean color. We'll grab the hex code. Everything's better with hex. People just want to have hex. Anyways. Light 1 primary. We can probably just make this white. Actually, let's make it a little bit more interesting. We'll make it kind of a real pale. There we go. Give it just a tint of color. And then make sure to get your specular value, which we can actually, usually what I do is I just copy the value from my diffuse to my specular and then crank it all the way up so that it is brighter. And we should be able to see on this one. We'll take this one, which is kind of a deep purple. I'm sure Pook is going to go crazy when he sees all these weird colors. I hear Pook doesn't like weird colors. Alright, so see, we copy it, and then we drag it all the way up to the white. Alright, so here's our colors, our references. We are going to go grab this is just a little cheat sheet I keep in each folder for myself until D. Kesrick in all his awesomeness updates the Blender exporter. Alright, so this is what those lines are supposed to look like. Ambient light, type ambient, diffuse, and here's where we set those values. Ambient is our diffuse. I just have to remember how to get them. Okay, here we go. And we just copy it right over. So 0.080, 0.153, 0.434. And since it's the ambient light, it doesn't have a spec setting. The attenuation, which I believe is the power, of the light, we set at 5. So I think that the higher it is, the lower the actual power. So, you know, like a bunch of other things in Homeworld, it doesn't always work the exact way you think it should, or backwards from the way you think it should. Anyways. Alright, so we got that one. So now we get our other directional light, 0.723. You'll notice that the type for this one is directional, 0.730. 1.0. Specular is the same in this case because it's so bright. Attenuation, I'm not sure what this parameter is. And then this is the actual strength. Directional light 2. Which actually, let's see if we can set that down to 0.5 and if that works better. 178. Oops. 150. 397. 437. 366. And 1.0. All right. So now don't need those. Now we can open up our DAE. Close that one. All right, and now let's move this to other view. There we go. All right, ambient light, we find our truncated value. Highlight it, do Control F, replace, we paste our value from here, replace all. Should have, whoops, easy there. Let's turn on word rep. Okay, so it replaced all of them. Let's do the same thing with the next one. We copy, we highlight, we Control F, replace, we paste our value, replace all, and one more time, Control F, replace, paste, replace all. Alright, so we fixed the truncated values. We're going to copy over our Hodor script. I know people probably have different ways of doing this. Move that into source. I've just been basically copying the same one that came from the example files way back when, like a year and a half ago now. We will call this tutorial light.hodor. New, okay. Tutorial light. Let's see here. Find our DAE file, copy path, paste, copy, paste, change the extension to HOD. All right, now we're going to run Hodor. Let me go find its path real quick. Okay. Hodor script equals. Then we do another path, copy path, paste. Let's see if we did everything right. Looks like it. And thank you, BitVenom, for adding these little X's, since that way we know that it's not crashed, considering we all do that enough anyways. Alright. And you can see there what your resolution can be on your backgrounds. They can be pretty damn big. I don't honestly know if they can be bigger than that. I think all the backgrounds in the game are 4096 by 2048. Okay, so we have our HOD now. We're going to use my Brickspace mod since I've got a bunch of extra ones already. Folder, tutorial. Let's copy our HOD. Type. Copy our cube maps. Okay. But wait, there's more. We need to go, and originally you can just copy these out from one of the regular maps, or one of the regular backgrounds when you extract the big files. So let's rename this to tutorial and tutorial. So notice tutorial is the actual like in-game name that you're going to be referencing when you call this background. And the tutorial light thing comes into play in a minute here. Okay, so tutorial, lens flares, what the name of our flare is, or rather what kind of flare we're grabbing. So there's a couple different ones that you can grab. It follows the flare key, which means that we don't have to manually define the position. It'll just go where we put the joint in Blender. And then this, so this was in Homeworld 2. This is in Homeworld Remastered. This is all the extra new stuff. So, wait a minute. Did I do that right? I don't think I did that right. There we go. Okay. I had screwed up the original ones, so we're just going to copy them from a different spot. Background, tutorial, bump, 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 extra, tutorial. Okay. Alright, there we go. Okay, so flare key, flare key. We want these to be the same because we only have the one in there. So this way we don't have to define the position of the volumetric rays either. This is that second sharper high quality map. Here's your draw pre. So this is how you enable or disable your different stuff. Disable the pre-joint, disable the post-joint, disable stars, disable the background sphere. And a bunch of other stuff that we haven't all figured out yet. Alright, so here's our two. So we've got our tutorial, tutorial extra, our HOD, we have all of our cube maps. Let's check this against another one and make sure we've got everything. So I keep calling it light. The reason for that is because we're going to go grab a regular one that actually has almost nothing to do with our background. And in truth, this original came from the Homeworld 2 background folder when you extract the big files. And this contains all the star data. So if you just want to have a regular background, you just need this. If you want to have a background with actual stars and pebbles and stuff in it, then this is the file that you have to copy over as well. So And there's maybe 2 or 3 different kinds, but I've just been copying the same one over and over and over. So if you look at all the backgrounds I released, you'll notice they all actually have the same star patterns. Oh well. Nobody looks at the star patterns. Okay, so now we have our tutorial HOD, we have our tutorial light.hod, tutorial Lua, tutorial extra Lua, and again, all of our 12 cube maps. 12? I feel like that's, yes, 12. Okay, so now we should be able to use this in a level, and luckily I already have one set up. We're going to go to, good God, there we go. Load background tutorial. And let's see if we, go away, did this right.